A very warm welcome to all the senior dignitaries and our super audience to the first Africa-India Smart Energy Roundtable. Energy access remains a challenging for Africa, as a significant number of people still lack reliable access to electricity, which is nearly half the continent's population and more than 80% of the global electricity access gap. Despite having substantial oil resources, Africa's refining capacity is limited, and most countries in Africa are importing refined oil. This limitation underscores the importance of electric mobility to jumpstart sustainable transportation solutions. With this, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. I would like to welcome our chair for the session, Mr. Ashish Khanna. He is Director General, International Solar Alliance, ISA. Welcome, sir. Our moderator for the session is Mr. Abel, Tella, Director General, Association of Power Utilities of Africa. Welcome, Mr. Abel. Co-moderator, Mr. Ravi Seethapathy, Advisor ISGF and Executive Chairman BICERUS. Welcome, Mr. Seethapathy. Our esteemed speakers are as follows. Mr. Tarun Katiyar, CEO, TPTCL. Welcome, Mr. Katiyar. Mr. Nick Singh from Eskom, South Africa. Welcome, Mr. Singh. Mr. Atalanta Kar, General Manager, Growth Markets, GE Vernova. Welcome, Mr. Kar. Mr. Mawuena, Deputy CEO, CEB. Welcome, sir. Mr. Salifou, Deputy CEO, CEB. Welcome, Mr. Salifou. Mr. Bivoung, Deputy CEO, ENEO. Welcome, sir. Mr. P.K. Agarwal, former Director, Grid Controller of India. Welcome, Mr. Agarwal. Mr. Jeannot, DCRE, APUA. Welcome, Jeannot. Mr. Lawrence Jones will be joining us virtually. He is Senior Vice President, International Edison Electric Institute. Mr. Palace, Deputy CEO, CEB. Welcome, Mr. Palace. Mr. Xavier, Deputy CEO. Welcome, Mr. Xavier. And Mr. Ismail Adam, he is AG Manager, Central Electricity Board, Mauritius. I would request our moderator to kindly take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashima, for this brand introduction. I welcome our chair and good friend Ashish, the best African in the room, because he knows what is energy in Africa. For the long practice that we have with our utility, with our government in the energy sector, and also with what we achieved together on data collection and dissemination through utility performance and behavior today, an initiative that we launched with World Bank and African Development Bank in October 2019. That said, we would like to take the advantage of participation of a number of utility officials this year to have our first Africa-India Smart Energy Roundtable, where we would like to elaborate on, like I said in my introduction word, what can we take away from the Indian experience, as this experience is very close to our countries in Africa. And if India can do it, so Africa also can do it. And this is the best face of the story, that we have the resources, we have the people, they are young, and the transfer of technology, like you know, can enter a young brand that ours, that we are the former generation. So I would like us to take advantage on our presence in Delhi during this forum to exchange on which kind of collaboration can we have to take the best of this journey that India can have gone through. And like the introduction have already made, I just want to give the floor to our chair to launch this roundtable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Abel. It's a pleasure to be here. And some of you know Africa is very close to my heart. I spent last 10 years in Africa, both being based in Africa for 5 years and 6 years in Washington, D.C., working across the entire sub-Saharan Africa. And it's my first week as Director General of International Solar Alliance, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity because Africa is so close to my heart. I think just in terms of, since I was asked to set the stage, I will talk about, in the spirit of what Abel, you mentioned, what are the big takeaways from the Indian experience. And this is something I have been saying to our African colleagues for a long time. There is so much to actually see and learn from Africa. I'll talk about 3 broad elements. And there are lots of other things, especially on the reform side, the privatization side. But I'll focus on 3 big things. And then I will also talk about 3 aspects where International Solar Alliance, where more than 40 countries from Africa are members, can take a lot more benefit of. So let me start by talking about what are the 3 big lessons from India. And I will say the first big lesson is really the political will at the highest level on a long-term policy and regulatory clarity. Today, as you see, India has commissioned 100 gigawatts of solar and wants to do 500 gigawatts. We used to have huge energy access deficit even just 15 years back, and the energy access deficit is now almost over. And those of us who who were having energy had access to shortages, almost 6 to 10 hours. If you were to talk to most Indians, they will say how shortages have mostly been taken care of. This is also about what is the policy and regulatory framework. One, the political vision at the topmost level that this is important and this needs to be done. Second, have a clear legal framework within the same thing. We started with Electricity Act 2003, before that 1998. But then there have been clear schemes when India wants to do something. So Solar Energy Corporation of India was set up to work with states. Some of the states like Nigeria are now have to understand how the federal system will work together on promoting solar energy. So Solar Energy Corporation of India is a great role model. There were schemes that were done specifically for solar rooftop. That is, if you are here, you should see how India is starting a huge vision for having a solar rooftop for every household. There is also a scheme for agriculture in terms of looking at solar pumps. So there are clear policy frameworks for each of the specific aspects. What would solar parks mean? Who will do the transmission interconnection for solar parks? Who will do the national grid? Who will do the state grid? I think there is relative policy clarity. The second, policy will only be good only if you have people and institutions who are going to implement it. And India over last 15-20 years has managed to create multiple institutions at all levels. Be it regulatory, we have a Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. Each state has a State Electricity Regulatory Commission. We have a very deep private sector. As you would see, most of the generation now, barring 1 or 2 large central public sector undertakings, is owned completely by private sector. Especially solar is almost 100% private sector. There are private sector investments incoming in transmission distribution. So there's a very deep depth of private sector expertise in India, which is very important in Africa, because if governments cannot do everything, you at least need the private sector capability to actually do it. And then within that is financial sector ability. India is not dependent on money only coming from outside. It has a very deep financial sector. Almost $100 billion worth of power sector investments have happened through local financing, local currency financing, not trade. And finally, so we talked about the policy and legal clarity and the political will. We talk about institutions. The third is really looking at ways of mitigating risks and governance. And APUA knows very well when we created the database Upbeat, one of the most difficult data points for us was on corporate governance. How are the utilities run? Who appoints the directors? How are losses incentivized or disincentivized? I think how you set up the governance of both the public sector companies and private sector companies is extremely essential. And that's something also I urge all of you to look how India has created both public sector governance and private sector. In terms of areas for International Solar Alliance, I'm pleased to report, some of you might have seen that in the Sustainable Energy for All Summit concluded in Barbados last week, there was a $500 million equity vehicle for decentralized renewable energy that was announced. We are a founding partner for it, along with SE for All, Nigeria Sovereign Wealth Fund Agency, and Africa-50, which is co-owned by 20 countries. And that is essential because we have seen in Africa, utilities will not be able to meet the entire energy access target, unlike India, where the distributed renewable energy is much smaller. Our expectation is that in Africa, about 40 to 50% of people will need to be given access through either mini-grid solar home systems or other such mechanisms. Those people are able to have debt, but they don't have equity and risk mitigation. So we believe through International Solar Alliance, that is a facility through Africa Solar Facility that we'll be doing. Second, on institutional capacity, we have set up solar technology application research centers in 10 countries. And they are essential for having tie-ups with local universities in building all certification programs on regulation, on maintenance of solar plants, on bidding frameworks that I think are essential for local capacity building. We also are starting a startup program, 20 startups from Africa who are given seed funding for having youth and entrepreneurship projects. And there are also demonstration projects in about 25 countries that are doing. All of them are essential to give jobs and entrepreneurship opportunities to the youth of Africa. There is also an importance of creating private sector environment. We are also doing caucus of chief executive officers, CEOs. That is something that we do it annually, and we'll do it again sometime in July or August in Africa again. So through financial innovative structures, through capacity building, through CEO caucuses, I think this is very essential and we stand ready. I'll end a little bit by echoing what Abel was saying. I think what is not happening a lot, which we will really like to partner, is learning from each other. Even in Africa, unfortunately, I don't think a lot of countries are able to learn from each other. Kenya has done a remarkable work on renewable energy, but not many African countries go to Kenya to learn from Kenya. Similarly, if you were in Delhi, I encourage you to go to some of the distribution companies in Delhi that managed to reduce losses from 65-70% to under 7%. That is the crying need in Africa. Today, the private sector does not want to invest in Africa because the ability to pay by the utilities because of high losses is very low. So please visit in terms of how can you learn on how to reduce losses. So South-South collaboration, we stand ready, should be the need of the hour. And I really welcome you all. I hope you are enjoying the Indian hospitality. And we stand ready for a deeper partnership on India-Africa Forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For some interest, some CEO would like me to summarize in French very quickly for them. Donc, à l'entrée de la table ronde, il y a Ashima qui a fait une introduction, qui a planté le décor. Et ensuite, j'ai pris la parole en remerciant le modérateur du panel, qui est Ashish, Khanna, que nous connaissons très bien, qui a été longtemps à la Banque mondiale et qui a travaillé plus de 10 ans en Afrique et avec lequel nous avons mis en place le Hubbit, qui est la plus grande plateforme de collecte de données sur 77 sociétés en Afrique, 61 indicateurs de performance. Mais la partie la plus difficile, c'était concernant la gouvernance et la transparence. C'est là qu'on voit la difficulté des sociétés de travailler dans les États. Parce que ce côté n'a jamais été touché, la prise de collecte de données, la transparence. Comment le PDG est nommé? Est-ce que le conseil d'administration se réunit? Les pertes, quels sont les niveaux de pertes? Est-ce que les bilans sont déclarés? Toutes ces données sont dans le Hubbit. Et c'est avec lui qu'on a pu faire, depuis 2019, nous avons fait 2 éditions, la 3e serait l'année prochaine. Il a ensuite dit que oui, nous devons prendre connaissance de l'expérience indienne. Et le premier point où il a mis l'attention, c'est la volonté politique. Le second point, c'est bien sûr la mise en place d'institutions solides. Et le 3e point, c'est la gouvernance. Si une société à New Delhi a pu passer de 65% de pertes à moins de 7% de pertes, c'est que c'est faisable. Et nous devons suivre cet exemple-là. That said, I will step into the last point raised by the moderator to say that the share, how do we share experience? How do we, in Africa, Africa is diverse. You have very advanced utility, very advanced country, and you have countries struggling with 12-20% assets raised. But nobody wants to go to the neighboring country to learn from this country. And sometimes you travel 10-15 hours going somewhere to find that what you are looking after is in your neighboring country, that you can go even by car. So we need to share our experience first between us before we face another part of the world. So on that, I would like to introduce my moderator, Ravi. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Abel. Actually, Abel has said it all. The only one I would like to add to what the chair just said is your EPC, your construction engineering capacity is also vital. I've sat on the board of one of the L&T companies. The top 5 or 6 electrical builders in the world come from India. We have done wonderful work in Brazil, in Indonesia, in parts of the ASEAN countries, in the Middle East. We are building 1,000 megawatt solar plant, single location. We have done 3 already. So I think in your capacity building, look at also engineering, procurement, and construction as one of the collaborative efforts in this. So I'd just like to add what the chair just said. So Abel, over to you.
My proposal that we first have a like at the round table, we give you the floor, quickly introduce yourself, introduce your utility, what is your focus point? When you come here, what do you like to take from here? Who can be very important for your management? Remember what I said in my introduction word, the only poverty that we have in management, the poverty is not the soil, the poverty is not the raw material, not the money to develop, but the poverty can come from the management. That is governance, that is transparency. So to enrich your governance, what do you think essential for you? So please.
Good up. Hello? Yeah, good afternoon to all. My name is Tarun Katiyar. I'm representing Tata Power Trading Company Limited. I've been with Tata Group for last 20 years, or more than 2 decades, and have served in various domains in terms of distribution business, transmission business, and now I'm looking after trading business, and also been part of setting the first megawatt scale rooftop solar under guidance of Mr. Sunil Wadhwa at Delhi, at our stores, central store basically, an innovative project at that stage, 2010 I am talking about, when the cost of renewables was talk about 26 rupees or unit, something like that. Having said that, I've been engaged with Africa almost for last 15 years now. I've been traveling along with from 2010 when Nigeria got privatized, since when they divided the entire country into 11 distribution companies, and then 17 discos and gencos and other things. I've been part of that journey. I've been experiencing while Delhi model was adopted, but I think Ashish said very clearly articulated the reasons why it has not worked. Political will, regulatory compliances were not there. The people have committed something during the bidding stage, it was not adhered to. And therefore, a lot of pressure came. And then, of course, governance and risk was a major concern. And beyond that, I think capacity building, people were also not immune to this change. There is a time frame which is required. It's a culture building exercise. It takes a lot of time to bring those people along. It's a repetitive cycle. It's not one-time dose, you give it to anyone and it will work. It is a repetitive cycle which keeps on working. We served around approximately 5 discoms in Nigeria, almost some of them for even more than a decade. But from, if I tell myself, I'm not satisfied with what we have been able to deliver from a perspective. It could have been much better. We have been able to do something, but challenges are all around governance there. And lack of funds is another area where we plan well, things are designed well, but the implementation is something which is a major area of concern. I've been part of ECG privatization, which was planned earlier. We participated as a part of Tata Power at that time. Of course, I understand this is again coming up for privatization now. But see, commitment, again, the political will is something which is again missing. Apart from that, I think that the experience have been good in various other countries. We have worked along with Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Liberia, Sierra Leone, as well as we were trying to work this CSLG line, that is Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea transmission line as one of the OEM as a partner to them. So political will, and we have to set our house in order. I think things will definitely be interested. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends. My name is Singh. I'm from Eskom, South Africa. I head up the Smart Grid Center. Perspective, the utility has got a national mandate for electrification. And I think since democracy, the electrification rates were extremely low. They were in the low 80s. And since then we are in 95, 97%. But there's still excess of about 54 million in South Africa that don't have access to electricity. That's true. I mean, that should not be the case. So as Eskom, and with the mandate in terms of repowering and repurposing our decommissioned power stations, all in line with Paris Accord and carbon neutrality by 2050. I think, you know, South Africa, India, BRICS alliance is most definitely there. And I think if I want to get anything out of this today, it's, you know, the discussions that I had this week about being so reliant on each other is a good thing, but we also need to be able to create that individual capability, either as Africa or as India, in terms of the manufacturing circle to put us in that. You know, I think China has done that, and they've done a fantastic job. And we've become very, very reliant on it. I can get anything out of this. Technology is not the problem. We can solve it. Technology is always something that's but that long-term reliance on third parties, you know, you should have a short, medium, and long-term strategy. And I don't think we look at long-term. Now, India is, from my conversations this week, it's always about price, about costs, the cheapest. And if somebody can do it cheaper, use them. That's fine for the short-term strategy, but not for the long. Evolve as a country, we need to be able to train. So part of the just transition is that just age. That's South Africa's background. So for our decommissioned power stations, we try to take that community along on that journey, become an integral part of the solution rather than the problem. It's skills, training programs, education, getting them up to. That's easier said than done. So that's a mix. It's politics, it's technology, it's social. I think trying to find that blend between all of that to get a solution that's going to make an impact is what we need to do. Thank you.
Hello everyone, Ismail from Central Electricity Board, Mauritius. So Mauritius is a very small island next to Africa, and this makes us very peculiar. In terms of we don't have an interconnected grid and so on, which can make us much more maybe reliable in terms of renewable energy integration. So in terms of accessibility to electricity, so since 1982, we're 100% electrified. Our losses are already below 5 to 6%. The main issue right now, technical issue, is that our grid is aging. As well as our generating plants. And you mentioned about the political will. So our government does have a very strong political will in that it has stated that they have taken the commitment that they are going to have 60% of renewable energy in the energy mix by 2030. And right now we are only at 20%. And the load is increasing like beyond our planning because the electrification of the transportation sector, buses nowadays are being run on electricity. We have electric vehicles which are coming in. So this has created a huge impact on our grid. So we just need to modernize and we need to think about what we call the smart grid, what we can do. Don't just repeat the same. It was good for that part in time, but we need to modernize. So we have a few technologies as being showcased around today. So I'm here maybe to see how maybe India or our different friends here have been doing in terms of modernization of the grid and what else can we do? Okay, financing as well is a very important issue. We have got some grants maybe to install 10,000 rooftop PV free for people. So this is an ongoing project, so it's there. But still, since it is a small grid, and when we have variation in solar during the day, so this has the generator, okay, the traditional generating plant, they need to absorb these changes, the variation in the supply. So this makes our engine much more difficult to operate and is aging as well for them. So all of that we are planning. We have already installed 38 megawatt of battery energy storage. We are signing a contract most likely next month for 60 megawatt as well. So all of these is huge money. So we are trying to modernize, but the rate of change, things happening around us, is quite important as well. So we are slightly peculiar, but we are here to learn, okay, to share and to learn as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Atalanta. People call me AK. I represent GE Vernova, and I head the electrification software business for growth markets. Let me also tell you what is growth market. So growth market for us is India, Africa, and Asia-Pacific region. Now, there is a reason why we brought all these three markets together under the construct of growth market, because we find a lot of common challenges across these geographies, and we find a lot of opportunities to solve those problems together. Now, let me begin by saying that, not every day I find this kind of audience in a single room, where you have many of the participants who are part of policy making. There are chief executives of large utilities who are making a difference day in, day out. There are government participants, etc. And also people like us who are really, deeply involved in the energy transition agenda. Now, a little bit about GE Vernova as a company. If you have followed, I think roughly about a year back, we kind of created a very purpose-built organization within the monolithic GE to bring that focus for energy sector. And we have created a purpose-built energy sector company called GE Vernova, whose main agenda is electrification, decarbonization, and energy transition. We do nothing other than this, right? And Africa has always been, central to our growth, or this passion that we bring in for energy sector, right? We've been in Africa, forever, and certainly we have been part of many large transformation programs since last 20 years. Just to put certain things into perspective, today if I look at, African transmission grids, probably good 50% plus of transmission grids use our technologies day in, day out. If I look at, distribution space, I think more and more distribution companies are really, advancing towards becoming more digital, and then they continue to use GE's platforms. And we take a lot of pride while doing that. It's pretty much the same for India as well. We've been part of transformation of Indian transmission grid. Most of the national control centers or regional control centers, they leverage our solutions and platforms. And the change that we are now bringing in, we are involving a lot of our customers from Africa and India to conceptualize platforms that will take this industry to next 20 years, 30 years time frame. And in there, some of you who have been, involved in the digital agenda, you probably know that for last several years, we've been building a platform called GE GridOS platform, where you can plan as a transmission or distribution utility, you can plan, you can do your network modeling, you can operate, and you can transact. The whole market management is possible in a single platform called GridOS. Now, in past, where things were fragmented, interoperability was a major challenge. Many a times there will be multiple platforms and they will not talk to each other. And somewhere we felt that scaling, interoperability, security, these were becoming major problems for a transmission or a distribution utility to move forward in the real sense of digital transformation. And that's one big problem that we are trying to solve by bringing a completely new platform called GridOS, right? And this is something which we are doing together with our customers, right? I don't think there is any other player in this industry who has taken that sort of a bold step to change the whole architecture of technology operating in grids. and as all my colleagues would probably agree, that grids are becoming digital grids. And today, if I look at for any utility, I keep talking to utility companies across growth market. They will probably, in different language, say the same thing, that if you ask them what are your main agenda, you will, or your key vision, you will say electrification. They will say, integrating the distributed energy resources or renewables. And definitely there will be a topic of digital transformation on AI, etc. Now, through our platforms and products, these are all three things that we are trying to solve, right? Coming back to India and Africa collaboration, I just want to highlight that, first of all, lot of the work that we do in Africa are actually happening in Africa. I see a lot of participants coming from Benin. We have a large center in Benin, which we are trying to now grow even bigger, particularly taking care of Central and West African customers that we have, customers that speak French as a language. We are servicing a lot of them from Benin. And that center, in going forward, will kind of become one of our key delivery center servicing African continent. We are also servicing a lot of African customers from India, right? And this is not very uncommon, because India has always been servicing African continent for technology, various types of technology, including technology that we bring in for energy sector. The other part is, the reason I touch this is the skill consideration. So we are finding absolutely right skills in African continent. A lot of people complain, we don't. We could really put together some of our strongest teams in Africa. Of course, they are very well supported by global talent pool that GE as a company bring in. Some of them are also involved in product development as well, being in Africa, and we are trying to do more. We are trying to look at how do we find right products that can service continents like Africa. And those innovation has to happen within the continent itself. And that's where our endeavor is, how do we really find the unique problems and challenges that exist within pockets of Africa, and how do we solve them as a technology provider. This is, again, not uncommon. We have been doing that all throughout. Particularly in India, the types of projects that we have taken in last several years. We have worked jointly with government, we have worked jointly with utility companies, we have worked with policymakers to solve unique challenges of India. Ashish touched on loss as a major challenge. And I think we'll be one of the companies who have contributed significantly in that loss reduction through various government initiatives as a technology provider, right? So without further ado, I am here to really understand some of the common challenges and, of course, listen more. In today's session, we already work with probably some of the utilities that you represent, and look forward to having more discussion even beyond the session as things progress, as the conference progresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to thank very much the board. My name is Medewou. I am engineer in electricity system. I am the CEO of CB in charge of administration and human resource. We are here with our boss, the Director General of APUA. So all the issues we have is the same. He is the representative of all the utilities in Africa. But as I have the floor, I will take advantage to inform you that CEB is the company in charge of transmission for electricity in Togo and Benin. CB has also some electricity generation, like gas turbine and one hydro power plant. The main information we have is we have a project. We have a project on Nangwito Dam to install a solar, an hybrid solar power plant. So I think that for this board is it can be interest to inform you that this project is can begin in a few years. So as the participants of this meeting, I would like to know, because I know countries like China and India are quickly growing their industry or their technology. But I would like what kind of relation or what kind of partner between the public and private to have this way to be. I don't know. I cannot say it well. My English is not so clear, but I know that Ms. Tella can clarify well. The thing I want to say is that how can we do in Africa to have a quickly growing of our industry? That is my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Français ou anglais?
Bon, English and French.
Go ahead.
Well, I try in English and we continued in French if it's difficult. Okay, my name is ADAMOU ZIME Ngobi Salifou. I come from CUB2, like my fellows, and I'm an engineer. And CUB, you know that, is between Togo and Benin, the company. He presented the company, but it's not important to present it again. My expectation of this stay is to exchange with the India experience about the smart grid of distribution. We will have the long grid in distribution, and sometimes when we have not power, it's difficult to remove again the power. And the company of China, TBA, have a project in Benin to implement a smart grid for distribution. And now I've come here to know that how Indian people do it, and we compare this experience and to improve myself in this domain. What is my expectation? Thank you very much.
Okay, should we continue by? Yes, DG.
Merci DG. Bonjour à tout le monde. Moi c'est
La traduction simultanée.
Oui.
Donc après un temps.
Oui.
Ouais.
Donc moi c'est Alkassoum Atairou, DG de la Sonichar Niger.
Akassoum Atairou is the CEO of Sonichar, one of the few utility generating with coal in Africa, from Niger.
Donc effectivement, ici, on va parler de transition énergétique. Peut-être les gens vont trouver un peu bizarre que celui qui produit de l'électricité à base du charbon soit parmi vous.
Here we'll be talking about energy transition. And you find it very funny that in the delegation, somebody who is generating from coal is among the delegation. But let me respond to him and explain in French that India also generated coal, China generated coal, Australia generated coal, Norwegia generated coal, so coal still exists. Don't be ashamed.
Merci. Merci. Et donc, nous, Sonichar, on est un complexe industriel. Et on est basé à 1000 km de notre capitale Niamey. Donc, on extrait du charbon et à base du charbon, on produit de l'électricité qu'on vend à la Nigélec et aux sociétés minières qui sont au nord du Niger.
The utility is 1,000 kilometers from the capital city, Niger. They are generating from coal. And the two customers they have is the national utility, Nigélec. Madame the CEO cannot make it here. And the mining company in the north of Niger. They are the customer.
Donc ça fait un bon bout de temps depuis 2013. Nous cherchons à construire une nouvelle centrale thermique à charbon. Mais malheureusement, avec les restrictions qu'on a, personne ne veut financer le charbon. Donc on est un peu bloqué jusqu'à présent. On est à la recherche des partenaires qui peuvent nous construire la centrale thermique à charbon.
Of course, Niger is one of the most advanced in coal in Western Africa because the biggest reserve is in Southern Africa. But since 2013, they would like to extend the capacity in coal. Of course, no more funds to do this, but Niger is seated on coal and uranium, so you come to it later, but they are generating only coal. Yeah.
Donc, comme on est en face à des difficultés, on avait adopté une politique. On s'est dit, on va chercher encore des partenaires qui vont nous construire 2 centrales hybridées. Une centrale thermique à charbon qui sera hybridée avec une centrale photovoltaïque. Donc, une centrale thermique à charbon de 50 MW et une autre photovoltaïque de 50 MW.
Now, the option is to have a hybridization from coal with solar. So 50 megawatt coal, 50 megawatt solar, to be able to mix the two of them using less coal than solar.
Donc c'est un cri d'alarme que je lance. S'il y a des gens qui sont intéressés ici, ils sont les bienvenus. Merci.
His perspective is to have partners to develop this solar plant to be upgrading the coal generation.
Merci.
Thank you so much. There? Okay.
Thought I was going to skip it. My name is Sunil Wadhwa. Relevant for you to know that I started my power sector journey after 20 years of my work in the oil and gas in the Tata Group. When I was thrown into taking over the Delhi Vidyut Board, which is the government-owned state Discom of Delhi, where Tarun was mentioning we took over at 60% AT&C losses and could bring it down only to 10% in 10 years. During that period, we did a lot of demo projects on solar for MNRE. All sorts of new experiments used to be done, and we used to have the checks on our table, prepaid, just to do something on the rooftops of our substations with white roof, XYZ. But then it came to a first project on our own books, which was the first rooftop, biggest one in India, that time was 1 megawatt, and we were one of the 3. And then the story began on solar, and I've been through the journey of solar when it was about 30 cents. Now we're talking about 3 cents a unit. There were VGFs, viability gap funding, subsidies from the government, and all that has taken us to a 3 cent sort of a number. Now, my belief is, I'm a finance guy by background, and I love engineers because they present a lot of options to empty my pocket. But I see how the other pocket gets filled with those ideas. So I believe that there's no lack of technologies, as Nick was saying rightly. So many technologies, and Atalanta would bring 20 options for you. But I think the idea is really, is there a business case for what we are doing? So the business structures and the business models have to be bankable. And I think that is where, and I agree with Ashish 100%, that there's a governance issue. At the same time, there are also the structure of the business, the way it is conducted, whether all stakeholders are incentivized to see the success happening. So my assessment is that power is such a commodity which has been treated as a social commodity so far. It's like air, you breathe air. People think power comes from hydro. Hydro is given by God. It's water. But what goes into conversion of water into electricity, there's a cost. And what it does to actually bring the electricity from the power plant to the homes also is a cost. But still, it is considered as a social commodity. So the political will that you're talking about has to be factored into a structure where the politicians feel the business model is good for their vote bank, and the investor feels is good for their capital providers, and has to be win-win. And the only thought I always remind myself and everybody is that, look, the entire value chain of the power sector gets funded by the consumer. Banks are only intermediate. You can't expect the consumer to pay for the power plant upfront tomorrow. He'll have to use that power for 25 years, right? So ultimately, if the waterfall, in India we call it Gangotri, it is the origin of the river. If that is not adequate, the beneficiaries can't have water. Similarly, if the value chain which has to be funded is not strong enough or is not well structured, so I think the models really need to see ultimately, and we need to also see in a way, when you say political, have a harmonious business structure, consider the political system as a front end for the consumers. So let the political system take care of the consumers who can't pay for it in whatever form, and structure it in a way that the consumers keep knowing every day and every week that the government is paying for me. Because that's where the political will become important. These are not power sector ideas, but these are very important for power sector. I'll give you one example. One example which probably can happen in Africa also. India used to pay, the section of the Indian Electricity Act, section 35, 135, all that, or 65, requires the distribution companies to pay the subsidy to the DISCOM once in a quarter. But the consumer who is getting the subsidy doesn't know at all that he is getting a subsidized power. Power of 5 rupees, he pays at 2 rupees. He thinks that's the cost. But if that 5 rupees was to be charged to him, and the government pays 3 rupees every first of the month, there's an alert. Like you get a salary credit. You get happy, I got my salary. Similarly, there will be a credit from the government. 3 rupees for the units that you... That will build a vote bank for the government. Money will flow to the DISCOMs on time. So I just had these thoughts. I can't talk about power plant, nuclear, this, that, because I've seen all that. Everything works. So I had started as a member of the advisory committee of ISA. Ashish, before your term, I was a member of the Global Expert Committee, very nice name, of ISA, where I was asked as to what would you contribute, if you remember. I said I will only make business structures. So I had developed a business structure for DER, which is not generation alone. It's a decentralized generation and distribution franchising, where I have made sure that it's bankable. And the government, and one of the theses there was that if the distances are long, you put up a transmission line, the payback period will exceed 1,000 years. You want to invest in that money? So you take the power there, you take the generation there, you take the distribution there, and make it bankable. Let the consumers pay what they would have paid had it been a grid power. Remaining paid by the DISCOM. So there are many structures. I think if you concentrate on the structures, the way you do business, like you were saying, last mile we privatized. Even today in India, the Sikh DISCOMs, many of them, are getting revived because parts of their very critical, as I said, the waterfall, the beginning of the waterfall is the revenue management, is now is outsourced to companies which are very deep-pocketed. The distribution companies don't have to pay anything for the meters. They pay over a period of 93 months, and every month they save money by paying X amount. This is a model which will work absolutely great in Africa.
Thank you so much. Before our chair leave the panel, I would like quickly, in 2 minutes, to summarize what I captured from the intervention that we receive. First of all, before we do anything, we need to scale up what we need to develop our industry. The second one is that we do have a very good model of smart network, smart grid in transmission, in generation asset, but in distribution is our net mile. We need to have a very good follow-up of distribution where the money is fooling the system. The third one is that if we are going into transition, we need to go the right way. And having coal today is not a curse, but we need to go into transition, so Sonisha is looking after solar hybrid system to be able to face the transition. And lastly, our utility need to be customer-centric. If we don't put the customer in the center of our concern, we cannot develop the business. There, we need smart to be customer-centric. So, Chair, this is what I capture. We'll continue, and I'll leave you.
I apologize. Please continue the discussion, but I had something that I cannot avoid. I will leave one thing I heard, but also Sunil mentioned. Most of the utilities in Africa are struggling with the question that India struggled for a long time, which is to run a technical business and run generation, transmission and distribution. But if you are not going to look at cash as the CEO, or do I have enough cash and in the waterfall can I pay? And then you can go on to all the conferences inviting private sector, you will not be able to get private sector investment. Eventually, the thing that private sector looks for, do you have the cash to pay? Even if you want guarantee from any other third party like World Bank, ISA, they will have to know that at least you're on the path to actually have cash financial self-sufficiency. So my only request is, if you want that Africa, which is getting 3% of $600 billion renewable energy investments to go, the answer lies in the cash position of the utilities. That is the only answer. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much. We'll be in contact.
Thank you, sir. I would just request Mr. Abel to give a token of appreciation to Mr. Ashish Khanna and a quick photograph, please. वहीं पे दे दीजिए. Thank you very much, Mr. Khanna. Thank you for joining us. we'll continue with our discussion.
So we're giving the floor to the next.
Merci. Je vais continuer à traduire un peu.
Okay, no problem.
My name is 515 François Xavier. Je viens du monde académique.
He's coming from academia.
Donc, mon challenge, c'est, vous savez, on a toujours chanté dans les pays de l'Afrique, de l'Ouest précisément, le soleil, le soleil, le soleil, mais ça ne décolle pas, à mon avis.
Been talking about solar, but this is not catching up. Why?
Voilà.
Especially in West Africa.
Ok. L'accès à l'énergie électrique, on dit accès à l'énergie électrique, je crois qu'il y a une initiative africaine des énergies renouvelables qui veut qu'on atteigne 300 mégawatts d'ici 2030. Et moi, je trouve que le solaire n'est pas seulement la solution, mais il faut le mix énergétique.
I think that we don't have to focus only on solar, but the important which kind of energy mix do we have to put in place?
Entre le solaire et l'éolienne.
Solar, wind,
energy, yes.
And other kind of source of energy.
Le challenge pour moi, c'est que le wind energy, l'énergie éolienne n'est pas du tout explorée, développée.
Wind energy is underdeveloped and less, advertised than solar.
Pourtant, toute la côte du golfe du Bénin regorge d'énergie éolienne.
But the western coast in our, Western Africa have potential in wind energy.
Nous avons, nos laboratoires, nous avons fait beaucoup de recherches dans ce sens, mais je voudrais donc poser la question, comment est-ce que les résultats de recherche sont valorisés en Inde? Parce que comment est-ce que les laboratoires fonctionnent avec l'industrie pour que les résultats de recherche soient vraiment valorisés? Parce que nous avons beaucoup de résultats de recherche sur les énergies éoliennes, sur le mix énergétique, mais notre challenge, c'est que ça ne prend pas. Ça ne prend pas. Donc,
I would like to find out how research and development are organized in India. How do the research result put into application to have the industry effective in India?
Voilà. Donc, merci.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Je vais continuer en français.
I'll continue in French. The translation fees is free.
D'accord. Moi, c'est Palace Agaté. Je suis directeur du centre de formation. C'est la formation que je connais mieux. Et donc, c'est dans ce domaine que je vais essayer d'aborder. C'est vrai, vous avez...
I'm the head, the director of the training center, because the CB, the electricity community of Benin, Togo-Benin, have a training center. He's the head of the training center.
Donc, vous avez parlé en présentant M. Ashish, c'est Ashish, voilà. Et que vous avez eu à travailler sur les sociétés publiques d'électricité.
You introduced Mr. Ashish that in the position in World Bank, we work together with the power utilities.
Et vous avez eu à travailler sur les indicateurs de performance de ces
And we work
sociétés.
on the indicators, yes.
Et l'un des indicateurs que moi je trouve essentiel, c'est les ressources humaines.
One of the indicators that is essential for me is human resources.
Et les ressources humaines dans ce sens que lorsqu'une société a des ressources humaines de qualité, est disponible, cette société a de l'avenir.
If any utility have qualified human resources, this utility can be in the right position.
Cependant, dans nos sociétés, il est à déplorer la manière dont des fois certaines ressources sont gérées.
Sometimes in our utility, the human resources are not well managed.
Et des fois, c'est peut-être des choix politiques.
Sometimes political choices.
Et qui vient s'interférer dans la gestion et des fois, et même si on a les meilleurs indicateurs, on risque de passer à côté.
You have sometimes good indicator, but political influences make your choice not good.
Je voulais voir, eux, à leur niveau, quel est le poids des choix politiques.
I would like to find out, in the Indian case, what is the weight of political influence in the management of human resources.
Et ensuite, aussi, essayer de voir, et souvent lorsque une structure marche, les gens ne regardent plus la formation.
Sometimes when utility is performing, sometimes people
Les dirigeants ne regardent plus le volet formation.
The leader don't see how to develop the human capital when the results are good.
Et on reste à exploiter cette ressource qui est vieillissante jusqu'à ce qu'elle parte. Et après, on se retrouve face à des novices qui n'ont pas de direction.
Therefore, we have no succession plan in place so that the human capital aging and no replacement.
Je voulais voir au niveau de, c'est vrai, au niveau de l'ASEA, il y a eu une politique avec le RACE, mais dans la gestion avec les sociétés, nos sociétés, est-ce que ce volet est vraiment pris en compte?
I know that APUA have a structure in place, ANSI, je reviendrai là-dessus tout à l'heure, but I would like to know how APUA can influence our utility to better manage human resources.
C'est bon, merci.
Thank you so much. Take the other, yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeannot, Head of Communication of Corporate Affairs of APUA. Working with Engineer Tella. We're based in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, West Africa. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Reggie and Ashima, for this first Africa-India Smart Energy Roundtable. So we are here today to learn more how India moved to this smart energy and how Africa can move the same to the way. Thank you, Engineer Abel.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Praveen Kumar Agarwal. It's PK Agarwal is my short name. So I was working for Grid Controller of India, which is Power System Operation Corporation. I retired in 2020 as a Director Market Operation from there. Since then, I am working as a freelance advisor. So fortunately, I also worked for West African Power Pool. So I visited Côte d'Ivoire and Cotonou in Benin. And I see this, there is a very much similarity between Indian system or say the West African Power Pool. So West African Power Pool has about 14 countries. They are coordinating and then collaborating, and they have national interconnection, and that interconnection is being monitored at Cotonou from the ICC, Information Coordination Center, and they also run market, day-ahead market. So I was coordinating, I was advising them on how the launching of their day-ahead market, and upgradation of their SCADA system, and then market dashboard. So I see very similarity with India and this. So if you see India has 34 states, and they are because of the federal structure in India, they are independent. They are independent for all the power or regulations within the state, just like countries in West Africa. And at NLDC, if you see the NLDC or compare with this with ICC of BEP, so NLDC is only coordinating the inter-regional or inter-state transactions. Similarly, this BEP is also coordinating same thing, inter-national transactions, but within nations, individual country is coordinating. So there is very good chance of collaboration, and then how this India has evolved. I joined in 1996, I joined POSOCO or Control Center. That time it was very different, and now within 24, 26 years, India has evolved so much. That time there was no market and there was nothing was there. So in 2008, day-ahead market is launched in India. And I see this the African power pool is just starting the day-ahead market. So development of regional market and national interconnection is very much required, or very much a catalyst for energy transition, because when you are interconnecting different countries, you are creating a larger balancing area, and that is very much beneficial for integration of renewable energy. So and then resource diversity. Some country may have a large piece of land, some country may have large coal, some country may have large hydro. So they can share the flexibility. If you are connected with the synchronous connection, AC connection, you can share the flexibility. One country share the flexibility with other country. So that integration of renewables becomes very easier in that larger balancing area. So already I worked for West African Power Pool, though I worked as a freelance advisor. But whatever I learned from Grid Controller of India or from India, I use there. And recently, about one year before, Grid Controller of India is also did a capacity building capacity workshop for West African Power Pool officers. And when I visited Benin, and then I found that they were appreciating the Indian system and what they have learned from India. But so this how Africa's country can learn from India, but definitely there is also learning for India from African country, and I like very much from they have developed a pools. There are 5 pools, West African, South African, and they created a organization, institution. As Mr. Ashish was talking about the institution. So that BEP is an institution which is collaborating the different regional market. And they're also a very good institution for dispute resolution. So India can learn from there, and because in India we have regional market, we have many neighboring countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar, but we don't have such type of institution. So India can also learn from them and then create an institution which also monitor the transactions, and if any dispute is there, so there may be a dispute resolution institution like this. So I think this is both sides, learning from India and learning from Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eneo.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. I'll be speaking a kind of struggling English. Maybe people can follow me. So I am from NAO, Cameroon. I am representing the CEO. But in Cameroon, I am the Central Director in charge of generation. Cameroon is this country which has a lot of potential, even in hydro, renewable, mini hydro and gas. We have doubled our entire capacity from 2010 to 2024. But we are continuing facing load shedding. We are acting within the Central Africa Power Pool and within APUA. So for me, it is an opportunity to be here in India, and I have many expectations. So we hear about how India has reduced losses. Even in my country, my level of losses, it's about 25%, and it is too high. We have this issue of energy storage. You know, when we pass through the curve of supply and demand in Cameroon, at a certain time we have to do some load shedding, and in certain time, effectively, the system is free, so we guess with storage, so we can recharge battery when the demand is too low to be used during peak hours. And even we have this rate of access to electricity, which is very, very low in rural area, less than 25%, instead of 95% in urban. So we guess that we can develop off-grid and even to smarter. And a problem within the country, mainly the problem of managing of cost. ADAMOU, it is the off-taker on our system. So ADAMOU has a part of generation and has signed a PPI with the independent producer. And all those costs mainly are not integrated in the tariff. So globally, we have a kind of basic financing on the system. So this is a good issue. And I hear put about solar on roof. So I should know how through regulatory this is managed. Because if every customer put the solar on roof, so ADAMOU, what will be the business of ADAMOU at the end? And in our country, it's not very clear established that we can reimburse the cost of carbon. So we need even to learn from India. And the biggest issue, this is linked to the politics. We haven't a kind of solid and efficiency long-term planning, which integrate the development of industry, urban, so that when we put on place some project, we can have a trend which is controlled. This is a big issue, and this is linked to the politics. I guess from India we can learn a lot. So my expectations are very high. I should want to go back with a big back solution.
Thank you so much. From what I heard, I can say that I came back on what the session chair Ashish said. Sharing information is first than sharing experience, because if you don't know, you don't know. You cannot share anything. When at the beginning was APUA, 1970, and later on the Maghreb Committee of Electricity Comelec had been created 85. So followed by the South African Power Pool. The two entities operating, one at the north, one at the south. So the minister called upon APUA saying that, how do we organize the sector? And APUA said, the scientific committee, the task to think about how do we organize the sector in Africa. There came out having power pool in every region. We work with Western Africa Power Pool. We call it first Observatory of Electricity, I was the one organizing the meeting of the CEOs in 1992 to think about the Western African Power Pool. After the Western African Power Pool, there are the Central African Power Pool, 2005. It was not very easy because the less united place between countries in Africa is the central one, because have very high sovereignty. Every country have a very strong sovereignty. So my predecessor have many meetings before to set in 2013 the Central Africa Power Pool. There, 2003, excuse me, and there we finished with the Eastern African Power Pool. There I was on board, so we launched the Eastern African Power Pool. Immediately we have had a meeting in Harare saying that now we cannot leave every region developing isolatedly. Let's form what we call the Forum of Power Pool. We launched the Forum of Power Pool in Harare in 2005, before we finished setting the power pool. So from 2009 to date, except of 2020 because of COVID, we have what we call the coordination meeting of power pool every year. The idea of the African single electricity market was launched in 2009 in Cotonou, when I organized the first meeting of the forum. Imagine that it was in 2021 that the chairperson of African Union launched the principle of single electricity market, what we are working on now. So it's to say that we are not sharing this experience, we are going isolatedly. So the very rich experience of Western African people that he talked about, Agarwal talked about, is not shared with all. The last to come now is the Central African people, because we already last year, December, launched the market of Eastern African power pool. But I'm sure that the richest part being the Central African power pool with this huge hydro potential, will coming last to be, the mobilizing part of the continent. So we already are connected with Europe through Morocco, through undersea cable. We already, we, Africa, already connected with Middle East through Egypt. So it's become very critical, how do we foster our smart generation? Because imagine that for the interconnection with Europe, we have to isolate Libya and Tunisia because of the frequency problem in Libya. Because Libya, after crisis, the network become very bad, so the frequency was not stable. So the central dispatching call from Europe, disconnect Libya, or I disconnect all Africa. So now the network is open between Tunisia and Libya. So Egypt have to feed Libya because of this problem. The same between Nigeria, Ghana, through Benin-Togo. The frequency problem system in Ghana is different from Nigeria. We have the 330 kV line connection, lasts only 6 minutes. We disconnect to put an equipment. So if we want to take advantage from India being separate state like Agarwal said, we need to know how all this is combined to work together. If not, we will have the system, we cannot take advantage of this unique market. Talking about capacity building, you know that after creation in 1970, our High School of Engineers was created in 1978. operate 20 years, training many people, which some of them are CEO, minister, head of power pool, and so on today. But we stopped training. In 2016, we launched what we call the African Network or Center of Excellence in Electricity. We operate 8 years to train 9,107 people, more than 1,000 officials, with a budget of 25 million euro. There, we help utility by giving scholarship and subsidy to train. This story has to be shared because February 21 last, I signed with African Development Bank the new phase 2025-2030 with another 13 million euro to be able to continue training, but focusing now in smart solar or renewable integration, climate, a specific domain. Because what is common, what is daily management, the utility know how to do it. Where they have, there we need cooperation. We need to find out what we can take from India. We are partnered with International Solar Agency for training in solar. I have this night meeting with Irina from Abu Dhabi. Tomorrow I'll be having another with the International Atomic Energy Agency. So all those partners will be coming into phase 2 to share experience. So what we call about, what we said about sharing experience, sharing the good information, we need to be very focused. Because if we have been sharing, even among power pool, some achievement in Southern African power pool is not taken in board. Yes, Western Africa power pool is going the second more advanced power pool today, but we need to take the Central and the Eastern to come also on board. So is to say that, yes, experience from outside, but experience between ourselves is also very critical and very useful. So we have two kinds of training center. We have the Center of Excellence, we have 10, going into 12 for the next coming phase, because we integrate one, because the Center of Excellence today, we have French speaking, English speaking, and Arabic speaking. We integrate Lauca in Angola for the Portuguese speaking training center, and we incorporate the last one. The last one will be between CB and Cap de Biche. So the competition is open. So you can, you can start preparing yourself. So we'll be having Angola, CB, or Cap de Biche. All the two of them. If you are prepared, you know that to qualify, we have 85 critical. I'll send to you today. I send also to Senegal. They are working on it already to be prepared. So the evaluation will be next year. The assessment will be next year. So this one will help us to capture this experience. And I'm very happy that people who are individually, yes, of course, Mozambique Center, another Portuguese-speaking center. So what we need is that it's good here that through ISGF we can partner with not only people working in the institution, but people who, like experts, work in Africa. That make it easy for those people. I'm sure that if you go to Cotonou today or Ghana or Nigeria, you're not a newcomer. He knows. So Ashish also. So this is what will be put in place with Rishi to be able to take advantage of this cooperation. But we have already the platform to organize it. To organize through ANSI, to organize through APUA coordinating with all the power pool. We have contact with the power pool every month. We have a follow-up with all head of power pool so that we know exactly in which end, like we are specially organized to Africa Union. After the follow-up, I report now to the Director, Infrastructure and Energy of Africa Union. So let's share the good information. I can inform that our website will be completely renewed for our 50-year anniversary. Completely. It will be interactive. So all this content that you have will be online for anybody to download and know what's happening in the West Africa Power Pool, what's happening in the East, what happened in the continent, country, and also the island, because I don't want Mauritius, Cape Verde, and Madagascar to say, now I don't have any interconnection, I'm not concerned. You are concerned because your experience in Cape Verde, in Mauritius, those people are having a very good customer management, very low level of debt. When take some country struggling with 70% of recovery, some people have 90% of recovery. So all this experience have to be shared. So this is, I pass on the floor to Ravi.
Thank you.
Like a site from India, but now coming from North America.
No, as I was listening, in fact, it's a fascinating story. But let me talk about India, because my father was a power engineer when Indian electricity system was built, 1930s. So CPRI, REC was all built during his time. In 1947, when India actually got independence, the total generation of India was 1,750 megawatts only. Only. It did not have an entire transmission line connecting the entire country. There were two pools, one in the Gujarat western area, and then there was one in the south. But as I heard him say, as he, because he was immersed in the power sector, there were three things I think India did during the first 25 years of its independence. Not what it is today, but the first 25 years. It built almost 25 colleges of power engineers across the country. 1,000 graduates were taken, and my father was one of them. When they were brought into a pool, a national pool, here it will be a continental pool, to identify what would be the areas that require a criticality of build. So it was transmission, generation, everything. But the last thing also was, it was the industry, the electricity sector was in India was built on the backs of the capacity paying of the industrial sector. So it was the industry that actually paid for bulk of the transmission line that got built. The residential sector was able to piggy bank on that profitable sector. So the question for Africa would be not necessarily just a marketplace, because in India, the marketplace was not very profitable till 1975, 1980. It was a loss-making sector. The government had to absorb a lot of costs. But its vision, I think, if I was to look at what you're all saying, and where I had heard about the story, is simply because the will to build a national electricity system was there at the very top. Now, in India, it's probably, so many states plus one nation. In yours, it's many countries. So maybe, Abel, the countries have to come together like kind of a super committee, if you will, like the GCC.
Yes.
GCC has done exactly that. They suddenly found that you can't have too many countries who can't talk to each other, so they now have a GCC council. But I think if you identify those 4 areas, in about 15, 20 years, you will get where probably, or even better than where India is today, because you have technology. Now, to piggyback on the local people, I'm going to put Mr. Nick Singh on the mat here, right? If you were to take a containerized solar system which is isolated from the grid for the purpose of villages, because my father's village was built on one such islanded system, which allowed for education, allowed for small businesses to come up, and there were like thousands of these, and then it's only the grid got built later. So some such, I'm not saying this is a solution, but maybe a two-point strategy. One is an isolated grid, a distributed grid with solar as one thrust for the residential side, and then one is how do you get industrial in Africa? Because they will be the heavy lifters. If you cannot have heavy industries or big, large manufacturing companies, your entire business model will continue to struggle the way India struggled the first 25 years. It didn't come easily. So that would be my...
Donc, le co-modérateur Ravi, il a parlé de l'expérience de l'Inde, comment l'Inde a commencé par 1700 MW seulement à l'indépendance, et aujourd'hui, on parle des centaines de milliers de mégawatts, et aussi des systèmes isolés. Mais la première chose, how many institutes in India?
About 25 colleges of power engineers were set up.
Ils ont fait plus de 25 instituts de formation en ingénierie électrique dans le pays. Et donc, tu n'as pas besoin d'aller loin pour te former. Parce que la particularité de l'Inde, c'est qu'ils ont les spécialistes pour développer. Comme aussi, le président l'a dit, l'argent aussi est indien. Et comment tu as l'argent? C'est l'industrialisation. Donc l'industrialisation accompagne l'énergie. And there, I want to thank Ravi for this assumption. I will try to explain it, repeating it, even making unhappy people. We cannot develop any energy system without industrialization. It's a fake news. If you try to develop your sector with domestic use or commercial, next century we'll be talking again about energy in Africa. How do you think that the richest person in raw material is the poorest in energy? Fake news. If you want to be realistic, it's this combination. And there are two momentum. Transforming by industrialization, you make concrete job, and this African population, half new, you feed them where they are, where your industry are, and you make good customer, and you develop your system. There are no other secret in that. So how do we organize it? Political will. I remember one president some years ago went to China. I cannot name country. First working session, your capital city is very congested. We build new bridge and some way. See, no, hydro plant. Say, no. You know, this country, you cannot manage traffic jam. People are struggling 3 hours to go to airport. Say, no. When I have the hydro plant, I'll solve the problem of traffic jam. After lunch. Okay, when are we starting the new bridge? Hydro plant. It came back with a contract. So this plant, which had been in progress for 50 years, had been finished in less than 4 years. The day they launched the hydro plant, they break ground for the second hydro plant. This allowed them to have another 600 megawatts on board. This country today have everywhere road and bridge. So it will say that if you don't have your priority, you will be having road, building, but no energy to feed them. So that is priority.
Let me also just add, today, thanks to technology, today if you want in your plan, if you want 1,000 megawatts of solar, we can do India has the capability to help and put it in 2 years, 18 months. So it was not back in the 1960s, we have no technology. So today, if you have a plan that says, I will want 5 1,000 megawatt solar plants in Africa, all you need is to come, and we have to discuss the supply chain. I mean, he's also a maker of solar modules coming through now in southern India. And so the question is, what is your strategy? And maybe it should be a two-part strategy. You must have 4,000 megawatt solar plants all across Africa for your immediate needs. And then you try to see where industrialization and other things come up for the heavy lifting of your transmission systems. And then something like that. So I'll leave that to Abel to...
Yes, I will give back the floor to the audience. Before that, I'll don't summarize 2 cases that have been raised. The solar, roof solar panel is not a problem for utility. I went to Tunisia last year. The total capacity of roof plant is 100 megawatt. I went to Zambia. They don't have 100 megawatt, but a quite significant. What is in place? Every customer have a bi-directional meter, smart meter. When you have load shedding, those solar panels start feeding the grid. And they pay for the solar energy they sell to the grid. They became prosumers. Don't forget, if you manage to have many roof solar, you are creating your solar, storage with every customer. So it depends how you plan it. And I came to the last, that is say, the integrated resource planning. You need to have an integrated resource planning before you do all this. So some countries are on this way. Integrating solar, every customer with his storage, helping the grid to come over load shedding. So all this should go through a planning. So the customer can never compete with the utility. It's how you organize it. It became your supplier when you need energy. And they're happy because they receive something from you as their first customer. So this solar panel are your supplier when you have problem on the grid. So please.
Thank you. I just want to talk about summing up what was said, but in a practical use case that we actually experience in South Africa. So we obviously have Namibia, as a bordering country. And we had an electrification issue with these 2 towns that were 200 kilometers from the grid, from our national grid. And if we had to do it the traditional way using your normal transmission line and 132 kV lines and substations and everything else, that project was in rands now in terms of ZAR, was around 450 million rand. The microgrid solution that we developed cost 4 million rand. It was 1/100th the price, right, of that solution. Further to that, when I visited them, this was in 2021, we did a site visit in October, right? And I promised the people of that community that they'll have power before the end of the year. And nobody believed it. Nobody believed it. It was done within 3 weeks. Right? I mean, how do you even equate from no power to fully running in 3 weeks? That goes to show the agility and how quickly this can be done. The plant has been successfully done. It's been running since 2021 now, right? 100% uptime. And this is a complete off-grid plant with technology that we all have. Photovoltaic panels, lithium-ion battery storage, and very, very smart use of how you leverage the energy. So we use smart grids. There's distributed energy resource management systems that do load control. There's smart metering involved, revenue collection. But unless you go in there with an electrical solution for any developing community, that is your catalyst for economic change. You have to go in there, create power first. Once the power comes, the water comes next, boreholes, etc. Then the schools come, then the education, then health services. Then you start growing that economy. Then they can afford to create jobs, create opportunities that make them financially viable. And I think at the end of the day, it's as a utility, I stopped looking at a community and thinking that it's just my mandate to electrify. If the community is poverty-stricken and there is no jobs and no economy, it's pointless, honestly, giving them electricity because they can't even use it to their benefit. They can't afford to even pay for it. So it's, you have to go in there with a full solution. You need to look as organs of state how you go there in terms of electricity, water, education, health, and make these things feasible. And I think that's the only way we can do this. And I agree, you go with incremental deployment. You look at a short, you look at a medium and a long-term objective. But as countries, and I'm talking personally, we are very good at putting very good frameworks together, very good policies together to support those frameworks, very good strategies together. But when it comes to executing and successfully executing it, that's where it comes down to how we manage these projects. And I think that's where we end up failing. So that's just my little bit. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Another contribution by the assistant. Encore d'autres contributions? Okay. CB.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your views and so on. So another thing which I like to highlight is from our side, it's good that we have rooftop PV and so on. It's like growing like mushroom on houses and so on. So it's catering for the load growth during the day because we have lots of air conditioning load during the day. But at night we have the issue, and during afternoon when the sun is setting, so we have a sharp rise where we need to bring in much more engines. So it's a duck curve and so on. So we are trying to bring in battery energy storage system, and also we shared the project with private companies. So they are coming up with hybrid system, PV as well as battery in one set. So we have around 100 megawatt which has already been tendered out. So they are coming up with a project, but there is an issue which is a bankability issue. Okay, it's a new technology. Banks don't want to just invest into there, so we need to find ways. So it's been maybe turning around for 1 year already with this bankability. So these projects are blocked currently. So we need to find ways to be able to work around that. And I don't know whether you have had such an issue and whether it has been implemented across different places. I would like to hear from anyone if they have had these hybrid system implemented successfully as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. In fact, yes. In fact, today, among the technology solutions that we have, BSS is not for free. But it is through the integrated resource planning, we identify, should I go by storage or should I have base load like gas? If I have enough gas like Equatorial Guinea, I was in Equatorial Guinea where the electrification rate was 12%. I went lastly, they are 88% through gas because they have the resource. So you need to choose where to go. I'm sure that battery will be improving like other technology when we are talking about solar in the 80s. Where we have only some supply like photowatt and so on. With those supply I work in 85, but I was in solar. But today, the landscape have changed, and many countries are now have a very good industry in solar. So I think that we don't need to exclude any technology, any solution, but we need to plan it before we go. Yeah.
I think to your point on bankability, and again I come back to the first 25 years of India, right? If you look at the mobility, the mobile cell phone systems, they were expensive, costs fell. Solar was expensive, costs fell. So the question is, how do I take the higher cost for something good for the economic development of the country. So here, it was the industry that paid the higher costs because they were able to get a product that they were able to sell in the market domestically or whatever. And then, of course, as you keep building, the costs keep falling, right? So when you talk of bankability, and here I think there is an issue that somehow we should go to a bank and then borrow money. What if your own private industry somewhere, and you may have some big industrialists who will say, you know what, I'll take that power at a higher cost, but I want you to give me that power reliably. And maybe that is the discussion you should have, as opposed to getting into tariff. Because today the tariff structure is so modern, because the reliability of the system is already assumed. But when your reliability of the system is what India was in 1947, what bankability can you talk about? You can't. So I think we need that 125-year period, I think, what India went through, which is never discussed. We only talk of 300,000 megawatts. But what about the first 100,000 megawatts that India put up? I think it was at a high cost, a very high cost. But for national development, it was done.
I think this is more of a question than a comment. I think what I'm also hearing that a lot of things are going back to political will, a lot of things are going back to planning, a lot of things are going back to policy making. Now, if you look at participants like us, right, we come much later into the discussion, but often we are one of the impacted parties in the whole chain. And this is an ecosystem, right? There's government involvement, there are utility companies, there are funding agencies, and then there are technology providers and implementers such as GE, right? My observation is, I think when it comes to Africa, not necessarily funding is the challenge, because we are finding, for example, this Mission 300 by World Bank. It's a massive, ambitious program to electrify 300 million people in Africa, right? And that's massive. That's hugely significant. Now, as policymakers, as chief executives of utility companies, do you think there is merit to bring participants like us probably up in the chain, in the planning cycle, where we get an opportunity to share, what goes right, what goes wrong in similar scenarios in countries like India. And the reason I also bring it, for example, India probably 10 years back, when they needed that level of acceleration, they also did a lot of projects in public-private partnership, right? Where there was dependencies on implementers such as us, even in the funding cycle, which means they had to bring, participants like us up in the value chain and really hear our voice in the planning cycle as well. Is Africa thinking in that direction? Because I personally, we do quite a lot of work which are ADF funded or World Bank funded. I think there is money and there are people to provide that money if the plan is correct, if the governance structure is correct, etc. But do you think for us to get better in the planning cycle, there is merit in involving the entire value chain people into the planning? That's my question.
Thank you so much. In that case, I'll take two cases: Angola, Egypt. I remember when after crisis in Angola, in Luanda, the total capacity of generator in the street are twice the capacity of the utility. I was in Angola. Today, Angola have more than 6,000 megawatt installed capacity, while the peak load is around 2008 megawatt, because they are not connected to South African power pool grid. They are in the process to be connected. So they are SS power today. from 2002 to 2024. Egypt was in deficit of 10,000 megawatts in 2012, load shedding. Today they have 20,000 megawatt SS for the 22,000 megawatt installed capacity, and they'll be having a nuclear plant 2028, 2,800 megawatt. The company working for this achievement in Angola and Egypt are essentially private, national, foreign. The money invested are essentially national. That is the case. So if you don't pass through this, you cannot make it. And you know very well, she is in Angola, she is in Egypt. I can name all the company working in it. And promoting national company in joint venture with you from outside. So that is a base, industrial base, a supplier base. You have a supplier in Egypt who can produce every equipment on the value chain in combination with India, with China, with other countries, with United States, all. So all this is the richest experience of those countries. I can go country by country. What was wrong, what was good. Today we are talking about sharing experience, so I talk about only good experience. But the bad experience are also very good to learn for other countries not to pass through the same challenges. So I think that the private public partnership is on good track in Africa. What we need is how do we organize it? Like the moderator and Ravi said, cash is essential. And we cannot only ask for the DFIs. Put your money on table before you call the other to add.
I would like to let me give you a business proposal for GE. GE is a bank also through your bond lending, and you are a banker by yourself, okay? So I'll give you an example. I go to Saudi Arabia and the GCC countries. If you were to take every LM6000 that they are getting rid of, but don't sell it in Africa, you run it as a plant and then you get your money over a longer period of time. Actually, it's a very good viability model as to when Saudi Arabia is putting 25, 30,000 megawatts of your LM6000s out, bring it here to Africa and run it. But run it as a power producer. Same thing here, we have a country, we have an ESCO in India where we are taking them to Brazil. In fact, Reggie and I have gone to Brazil many times. For $1 a month per smart meter, they will run your entire metering system over a 10-year period. But that is the capacity that they are going to build. It is run by the sovereign fund of India funds them. So they are able to bring that business model because many people cannot afford smart meter, AMI, all that infrastructure. So in Brazil, they are now saying, okay, can we take this company and then give them a franchise area to be the MSP at $1 per meter per month, but over a 10-year contract. So GE has that, you have done it in the past, so it's not new for you. But you have to bring such models where then you become your self-financier and they are able to coattail it on a per month basis as a store, as opposed to saying, buy my LM6000s. But you got a lot of LM6000s you're going to have right now.
What another thing to add for which approach do we have to Africa? When we come to energy, we notice a risk, super evaluation, risk of investing in Africa. But now when I take communication, GSM progress in Africa, their customers, all the operator making profit. What are the risks there? When I go to communication, you know Canal, this provider of image. You have DSTV, but in many French countries, Canal Plus. Canal Plus have, 2 years ago, 400 billion CFA profit. Billion CFA. You cannot go to any family in Africa without any connection of Canal. They are paying. How do you think they cannot pay the energy? If the energy is reliable, they'll pay the high price. So sometimes our government are protecting, super protecting the customer. But the customer don't need protection. The customer need power, reliable power. Give him the price. Be reliable, he pay you. So the people who pay for communication, pay for image. If that he cannot pay for his energy, that is sometimes super protection. This super protection gives the image of risk to investment. So sometimes we need our leader to treat the customer as mature people. You need power, pay the price, you have the power. Investor, you are ready to pay? Okay, I give you the good, the reliable one. So sometimes the super protection, and there we come again to political will. We have Congress in a country some years ago. In the opening speech, the president said, in this country, I cannot raise any fund for energy because the tariffs are so low that nobody wants. I'll raise the tariff for 300%, even though I lost the election. He raised the tariff. He lost the election, but he's alive. It's a choice. Yes.
Basics needs to be, we have been talking about a lot of technologies and other things. I've visited many of the countries, even your metering, billing, collection systems, basic systems basically, where you have to collect, where you put those meter readings and produce bills out of it. Many of the countries are still on estimations billing sort of a thing. If we are not able to correctly bill our customers properly, we will never be able to do a proper billing to them, and they will never pay. That's the one dilemma which always comes. You have, for getting a right payment from a customer or a prompt payment from a customer, your bills has to be on time and on accurate, which I feel is one of key area. MBC systems are not in place. In fact, I find many places, even your CRM systems, where you have to record your customer's request or any complaints and other things. Those are also manual today. Many of the countries. We've worked across Africa for many of the countries. And even the basic things like energy auditing, which is something which is a basic to start with. If you want to do a proper, let's say, identification where the losses are or where the money is flowing, probably the energy auditing is one area. We talked about a lot of AMR. We talked about a lot of prepaid metering being placed across in pockets in Africa. But simple thing like probably I would say data analysis. I think those are the elements which can be captured well, will help you to create value for the customers, which I believe, sorry, it's not been talked much today, but I feel these are areas where it can add value. There is, I think Nick touched upon societal reforms. It's very important to have those. There are people who can pay energy bills. There are people who cannot pay energy bills. What are we doing to make those people, enable those people to make the payments? Delhi, if you go around, you will find we have done a lot of social reforms in terms of creating that value entrepreneurship between the customers. At Delhi, I'll just take 2 minutes, I'll just state an example. At the starting when we took over, in some of the areas, even the distribution utility people cannot walk in. There is a lot of heavy resistance. You'd have to create that environment. What we did free medical camps, just trying to articulate people or help them to understand or connect with people. Once people start connecting it, the second thing what we did is simple instrument like insurance policy, creating 100,000 rupees of insurance for each customer if they allow us to make a proper meter. And if they keep on paying the bills, I will be responsible for making their entire payments for the insurance policy. And this piece of insurance policy, in fact, these people did not have any identification of their addresses or their identities. This created a lot of social, that they got a paper which they can recognize in any governmental institute as their ownership proof or as their identity proof. That helps a lot. Then we started off with various other initiatives like maybe beautician course, any electricity, plumber course, electrician course, so that we enable those people to have at least some avenues where they can get the money out, or where they can earn the money. If they are in position to earn the money, they will be able to pay the bills as well. And the beauty part was basically we utilized the ladies of those vicinities, basically those geographies, as our brand ambassadors. Today also we have around 8,000 ladies who are responsible for doing we don't do meter reading, billing there, those areas. Those ladies, we have a business proposition for them. They earn out of that as well. But then it's something which is protecting it. The losses, which were 90% in those areas, have dropped down to hardly around 7%, 7 to 8% now. So those type of thought process, I think this will help to think through. I understand generation, transmission, all those technologies on those probably can definitely help. But if we are not getting the cash back from the customers,
thank you so much.
We are not doing our job properly.
I would like to jump into what you assumed to say that we mentioned the seminar that we have in Cape Town February last year. And this workshop we organized with Esmat, World Bank, ISGF, and APUA. Effectively, 85 people from 38 utilities in Africa. But at the end of the 3 days, what we realized, you might have the best technology, the best solution, but if you don't change the human resource, you have nothing. The person sits in front of the technology and have a report. If you take the report and don't act, the machine says, Lawrence is online. Okay, I finished. And so, to lower the non-technical losses, the worker is essential. Lastly, what to talk about the community. We receive a return of experience from India, Uruguay, Turkey, and other places for this workshop. But in other SMAP workshop, we receive a return of experience from Colombia, Medellin. When anybody talk about Medellin drugs, the electricity corporation, what they did, the police cannot enter Medellin. They went there. They incorporate those people selling, reselling drug. They make them power utility officer with uniform. Nobody can read the meter in Medellin. Those people start reading meter, they pay them. They all went out of drug, and the electricity board of Medellin have 95% recovery rate. After this, they enter now prepaid, and the loss fall down. So experience exists. You have to go and adapt the community. And man is in center of the solution. We will receive.
Actually, in Brazil, we have taken the lady who did exactly that in Delhi.
We will incorporate all
Brazil.
this and publish all this in our, like I said, our website will be very, very interactive. We publish all this story. You become called upon to publish this story for our utility to take advantage. The story this I gave to Eskom relating to the township where they took some meter, they burned the township, they burned the meter in township. I say no, those people have to be the same to install and follow up the meter. In my country, they say if you want not to lose something, give it to the thief. He keep it for you, and you receive it. So Ashima will receiving Lawrence. Okay. Hi, Lawrence.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm doing good. And you?
Yes. Nice to have you online.
Thanks for that. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but I'm happy to be participating.
Thank you so much. Oh.
Are you ready for me?
Yes.
Okay, I turned my video off just because of the bandwidth, if it's okay. But at least you saw me before, so I'm here. But just so that the bandwidth doesn't get crowded by the video, so I'm happy to put it back on. But I think it'd be better to talk first, and then I can put it back on during the Q&A. So good morning, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be joining you virtually here from Washington D.C. Lawrence, my name is Lawrence Jones. I'm the Senior Vice President for International Programs at the Edison Electric Institute. So what I'm going to do in the next 10 minutes, and then I'll leave some time for some Q&A, is to talk about three things. First, I will just say a few words about EEI. And then I will talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that we are seeing as it relates to the energy transition that's occurring around the world, specifically focusing on the emerging markets, obviously what we've seen in Africa. Abel, I was listening to your conversation about the non-technical losses. And then maybe just talk a little bit about where I see the collaboration between India and Africa in terms of knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing can be valuable going forward. And then lastly, I will tell you a few words about the Global Electrification Forum, which is a hybrid event that is taking place in May, and where I think utilities from India and Africa are encouraged to participate. So starting first, the Edison Electric Institute, we represent all the investor-owned utilities in the U.S., that's transmission, distribution, and generation, as well as retail. But then we also have an international program with about 70 members in 90 countries, including in India. And the goal of the international program is to be a platform for both international collaboration, sharing of experiences, but also working with utilities and governments to make sure that the public policies that are being developed will encourage investments into the sector. We also work on making sure that the innovation being done within the industry can be shared between utilities across the globe. One of the things our industry gets to be told a lot is that this industry is not innovative. I strongly disagree. I think that the industry is innovative, but the challenge we have as an industry is we are not good at telling our story. And so one of the things I do, and Abel knows as well, is I spend a lot of time working with utilities to try to get them to be able to tell their innovation story. Innovation is not just about technology. The discussions you were just having regarding non-technical losses was also an innovative, was also innovation, because here you are using processes to improve the overall financial performance of the company. So the goal here is to not only see innovation in terms of technology, but also look at innovation in terms of business processes, in terms of regulation and what have you. So that's what we do. Specifically, to talk very briefly about the energy transition. This transition we've been on for the last decade or so, I would say. We've been talking about the energy transition. It started off with a lot of focus on the transitioning of the generation sources from 100% fossil based to now a different variety of fossil and renewables, gas, coal in different countries. And so every nation, every country, every region has its own energy transition pathways. And one of the things I always say is that there's no one size fits all. So the approach in Cote d'Ivoire, where Abel is headquartered, or in Delhi, where you are now, India, will be very different. And so we have to recognize the challenges that each country or each utility will be facing will be localized to where they are based. Now, what is international in terms of the transition are some of the big trends that are affecting the transition. And I will only spend some time on two of them that are very important for this conversation. The first trend is the importance of the supply chain, both supply chain when it comes to equipment, but also supply chain when it comes to critical minerals. And we are seeing today how important critical minerals are, and also how supply chains are important. So overcoming the challenges of supply chain and critical minerals will require a lot of collaboration around. The other thing that's affecting the energy transition, to be very blunt, is geopolitics, because obviously every country has its own self-interest. And so we are seeing in different parts of the world, as I travel around the world and meet with executives, they are all trying to understand the geopolitics. Are we going to continue down the path of accelerating the transition using wind and solar, or are we going to perhaps, because of energy security, change the strategy? And I think that's a very important point in the context of Africa as well as India, where utilities now have to balance the affordability of energy with the energy security that is required by the government, by the countries, but then also making sure that the resilience of the grid is very important. And by resilience, I mean both the physical grid resilience, but also the financial resilience about the utility. We hear a lot about the resilience to extreme weather, but now more and more utility executives I talk to are talking about resilience towards public policy, because we see what happened in Germany, for example, because of the situation in Ukraine, the war between Ukraine and Russia. We see how the German government, because of natural gas reduction from Russia, had to reimagine its energy transition. So every country, as we think about these geopolitical issues, will have to revisit their strategy. Many of them will slow down the pace. Some of them will accelerate the pace. It all depends on where you are. And so in the context of Africa and India, I think really this South-South collaboration in terms of lessons learned and shared from both the African countries, but also from India, is going to be very important. But I think the key to being able to take advantage of the challenges we see is to see how innovation can be brought to bear. And this is where I will just say a few words here. We've been talking a lot about the use of smart meters in electricity grids for the last 2 decades. It started going all the way back to the blackout of 2003, when everyone started discussing smart grids. Well, I would argue that we are at a point in an industry now where we need to not just talk about smart grids, but we need to start thinking about the practical use of these devices. What are the benefits when you deploy smart meters? Can you use the information in a way to improve operational efficiency? So I think one of the things I like to talk about when it comes to emerging economies is it's not just about the technology, but it's also how do you use it? What sort of processes? And I think here there are a lot of lessons that can be shared between India and the African countries. I gave you two examples. For example, in Cote d'Ivoire, the utility, the CIE, they have done an excellent job in terms of using smart meters to improve the performance of the company by making sure more and more customers can pay their bills. I give you another very interesting example. If you go to, Kenya, in Kenya, you there also see the use of technology to improve grid operations. And then if you go up north in Tunisia, in Morocco, there you see in terms of energy storage and large-scale PV, you see what is being done in Morocco. And then when you go to India, you all are there, you can say more about it directly. But there again, you see how a lot of the innovation being done there can also be shared. So I think Africa and India, in Africa as a continent, of course, India, there's a lot of opportunities for sharing knowledge between the two. So I think international collaboration, or in this case, bilateral collaboration, or any form of collaboration, I think is going to be important. Why is that? And that is because as we accelerate the energy transition, we need knowledge, we need workforce, we need to scale up our staff. And one of the things I'm seeing as I travel around the world is that sometimes some utilities want to reinvent the wheel. They want to do everything from scratch. But I'm recommending that instead of trying to start from scratch, maybe what the utilities should be doing is to identify similar problems and then ask the question, how are those problems being addressed? So I give you one example. Take asset management, which is a very big topic now in many developed OECD countries and emerging economies. But asset management is a very broad topic. There are so many different aspects of asset management. And so I'm doing some work right now with some utilities in the Gulf region. And one of the things they are doing is they're saying, look, why don't you as a utility list your top 10, 15 challenges or questions, and you can then examine those questions with your peer utilities. So in this case, utilities in Africa can list their challenges, utilities in India can list their challenges, and then they can also discuss how are those challenges being solved. Because if you just have a conversation around asset management in the broad context, it may not be easily applicable to all the different companies. So that's one recommendation. The last thing I will say in terms of collaboration is also to be very careful with the use of benchmarks. I know that as an industry, regulators like to tell us to use benchmarks to be able to measure ourselves against our peers. But this is very dangerous. And I'll give one last example on that. Because if you take a matter like asset management, so as I was doing this investigation with utilities around the world, I reached out to utilities in New Zealand. And I was trying to, even within the same country, say, can we use benchmarks to discuss the performance of the utilities when it comes to asset management? Well, the benchmark was telling us one thing in terms of which was the best utility. But in reality, the utility that was actually best performing was very low rank on the benchmark, in the benchmark report. And the reason is because the metrics that were being used were not similar metrics. So my recommendation to utilities, and I would, especially in the case of India and in the utilities in Africa, where we may not have all the data that's necessary, is we need to be very careful how we read these reports on benchmarks, because you could have a high score from a benchmarking exercise on a topic, but when you go down and look at the practical implications, you will see that what is being done by that company may not be applicable to you. So let me just end by saying that part of the goal at the Edison Electric Institute when it comes to international collaboration is to make sure that information is available to utilities around the world. And for that, we believe that universal access to energy begins with universal access to utilities, to information. So on May 5th through the 9th, we're having the Global Electrification Forum. Abel has attended it before. It's a hybrid event, so all of the content is going to be made free to utilities around the world who want to log in. So I will send the information to Abel and to Reggie, and he can share with the utilities in India and, of course, our colleagues in Africa. Please feel free. It's free to attend. There's no fee. It's completely free. You can share the link with your employees, with your staff, and they can register to attend. Because of the time difference, all of the content is going to be available even after the session, so people can watch it in their own time zone. So Abel, I will stop here and take any questions from the group. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that if the distinguished panelists have any question to Lawrence, please go ahead. Like Lawrence said, we are used to having every year this the EI is having the GI, and APUA have been participating since 2016, and with a party of a number of CEO, and we'll be very glad to be participating this year again, and then the information will be circulated very soon. And if any question to Lawrence, which said that we wake him up very early, time difference in 9 hours, so or 10 depending on the season. So this one I have been facing every time when I work with India or China, and when I'm in the US or Canada. So thank you so much. We capture your insight. We'll try with Ashima to incorporate all, so that this roundtable outcome will serve as a document to care our manager to rethink the knowledge sharing platform. How do we take advantage of institution with EI, like I used to say, the biggest private funding utility corporation in the world that we are very glad to be partnered with. So thank you, Lawrence. Yes?
May I just ask you a quick question, Abel? Just out of my curiosity, of course I can't see the room. Can you just give me an idea of the audience? I know there are utilities. Are they both utilities from Africa and India, or who's in the audience?
Yes, we have the introduction. I have Niger. I have South Africa. Niger, Sonisha. I know that you know Nigelec, but we have in Niger we have 3 members. We have Nigelec, we have Sonisha, and Semen. Here is the SU of Sonisha. We have Eskom, that you know very well. We have CB, Central Electricity Board, Mauritius. We have CB, Communauté Électrique du Benin. This is Togo-Benin. We have Cameroun, ENEO, and we have, so separately, also SB represented through CB, SB being Benin. Okay. So I think that I don't forget any utility here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's great to know. From Eskom, is this Mr. Dan from Eskom?
No, it's Nixon. He's,
Nixon, okay.
Yes, he's participating in the board of GSCF with us, with Reggie. I'm sure that you recognize him when you see him.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen. And Abel, we'll keep in touch. Hopefully, I will see you in a few weeks here in Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much, Lawrence.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Ashima? Yes, sir. Are we in time? Yes. Okay. Okay, I'll give the floor to the audience. If any, I would like the organizer to have this list with the email, with the telephone, to be able to share, to continue. Today with the social media, we can share many information and having it. Yes, NAO, yes.
My purpose is about the reserve on the system. You know, each country, if we have an industry which want to install, so normally we will be able to supply. Okay, what I say, in each country, if we have some industry which want to install, we must be able to tell them we have availability of energy. Most of the time, we are tied without any reserve. And the problem is how to finance the reserve. Because when we are working with investor, we pass through PPA, and the request for capacity factors. So we can build a plan of 500 megawatts. If you want to make provide a reserve of 300 megawatts, so it won't be charged in energy. Or for investor, you have to pay directly a PPA, and it is very, very hard. So I don't know if World Bank on way of working with African country, try to take account of a trend of capacity factor to charge. But when we are at zero level and you have to pay 100%, at certain moment, even the company, the state, cannot run. This is a great issue. Most of the country have any reserve.
Any reaction to
this? This capacity factor is an issue with many, many developing countries. Because you use every large unit of energy to feed, so you don't have. But if you look at the technologies, and I'm going to again bring in GE and ABB and others, the capacity factor when I was a young man in power used to be much higher than what it is today. So with a good platform, your capacity factor can be brought to very low percentages to manage the system. So that makes your banking and financing also that much lower. So you may want to explore that and see what can be done or cannot be done. I mean, I don't know the details, but something to that effect.
But the good thing in Africa, and I came to Agarwal and Tarun, power pool and regional project. CLSG can never have been done if a single country wanted to do it. With the power pool connection today, your reserve can be not in your country, and you take it into advantage. Today in Western Africa, the 13 land countries are interconnected. So if you have any problem, the response can come from outside. That is taken into account. A country like Kenya, now interconnected with Ethiopia, having the largest wind farm, Lake Turkana, 450. They lost 380 megawatt in 10 minutes. 10. But they don't have, collapse the grid. They sustain. Why? First, hydro. Second, interconnection. They can survive to it. So, in these cases, Africa also is going the right way. Power pool connection, interconnection between region and different sources of generation make it better. So the evaluation of your reserve fall down.
actually, I forgot to mention that what the IDA, which is launched today or launched, and the first general body meeting was the same thing which Africa done 54 years ago. The APUA is the same thing, basically an formal association of all the utilities.
So we have a lot of homework for you. So when he summarizes, I will add, or he can ask me to first and then he can summarize.
So we welcome Reggie to this panel. Yes, please.
Mic, please. Anybody online? Kabira?
No, Lawrence is finished. He's gone. Okay.
Thank you. An amazing discussion that I've been listening to and have been looking at the Africa continent myself in terms of the electricity sector development. Had a few comments just to make on whatever has been discussed. One, I think there are, which was also highlighted earlier, there are pockets of best practices which I think globally should be known. One, of course, was what we discussed. Second is Eskom and South Africa's renewable energy program, the IPPO run program. It's very similar. They've been able to achieve what India has been able to achieve from their solar programs. So that's something that I think should be also publicized. And after that is done, and one important point made was, while generation transmission is important, while now the focus now needs to move in Africa on the transmission lines. There, the India program of the green energy corridor is something that I think is of relevance, and to which comes the linked point of bankability, and financing becomes very important. And India has had its own struggle when it came to bankability. When we are looking at nascent sectors, and I would still say electricity development is still nascent in Africa, international financial institutions play a very major role, and they need to be brought in much more strongly, whether it is through the AFDB that we are looking at, or the 300 programs such as what the World Bank has launched. I think those need to be mainstream much more strongly when we are looking at financing structures. There are institutions such as the renewable energy, the IREDA, or the Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency that has been formed. That's a program, that is an institution which can be replicated probably at the Africa level to ensure that there are funds flowing. There is an agency which is able to bring in the IFI money in and structure those loans and then take it forward. So that's the kind of financing I think that can be looked at. And one small point that I wanted to say was, where we stand in India, we have similar issues, but our intensity might have been gone down. When we are looking at solutions, you don't need to look at solution what we adopted, let's say 20 years back. You have the advantage of technology that has come in, and you can look at leapfrogging of solutions. So smart metering, and what I understand, most of the African countries, whether it's Nigeria or South Africa, are looking at smart metering very strongly. Here, I think, again, the India experience can be something that can be looked at. We've got PPP structures for the first time in the smart metering space. That is something that can be replicated in Africa, and that can help in bring in the investments as well as technology together in the continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to suggest that we use the advantage of this roundtable to have a very simple and rich edition on softer cooperation between India and Africa, the best practices. I'm sure that we can put a lot together. And
that's his homework.
Yes, it's a homework. I'm committed, Ravi committed, Reggie is committed, and everybody here. So with Ashima, we have the record. We try to put it together, and this can serve. This can serve because if we don't tell the right story, nobody knows. And
yeah, Abel?
Yeah?
Can I just interject for a second based on the last comment, if you don't mind?
Yes.
In terms of best practices?
Yes, you are welcome.
So I agree with the speaker, the lady who spoke, and the point she made. I just want to add, she said something about leapfrogging, and I really like that. I just want to add one element to this conversation when it comes to financing and attracting investments. So one of the things that I am struggling with when it comes to electrifying Africa and parts of India and sharing lessons. And for those who don't know, I grew up in Liberia, and we have our own share of issues in Liberia when it comes to electricity. But I think there is an opportunity to really think differently when it comes to attracting investments to the continent and the collaboration, even from India. So as we all know, a lot of the infrastructure in Africa when it comes to electricity depends on the development banks, whether it's World Bank, African Development Bank, and other banks who come in there, and all the multilateral grants. But what surprised me was that last year, the Africans in the diaspora collectively sent back to Africa almost $100 billion. $100 billion. And if you think, and then take Liberia, a small country, Liberia sent home almost $1 billion. Why am I bringing this up? And Abel and I have discussed this before, is that there is money that is on the continent or in the diaspora. The same goes for India. What is missing is how do you attract those private monies to come to the continent and invest in the infrastructure, invest in energy. And I'll go to Ethiopia as an example, and Abel, probably you can talk about it more. When Ethiopia was building the hydro, they needed money. They went to the World Bank. They had all kinds of issues with the World Bank. What the government did was to issue bonds, and Ethiopians raised over, I guess, $200 million amongst themselves to be able to build the dam. I think in terms of leapfrogging, I think we need to start thinking about how the South, the global South, can leapfrog funding when it comes to energy infrastructure. Because if we create the right environment, if we bring lessons learned in terms of how do you make projects bankable so that you can attract the diaspora to invest, I think you will see the African energy electricity sector taking off very, very quickly. I think the consistent dependency on the multilateral banks somehow makes electricity not an attractive sector for even the local community to invest in themselves. And I think the advantage, if you look at CIE in Ivory Coast, and Abel, correct me if I'm wrong, in CIE, in Ivory Coast, the utilities, the citizens can invest in the utilities themselves by, I think it's 10% of the shares is owned by the citizens. So maybe from a standpoint of attracting investment, the best practice here should not be the old practice of designing these investment models that depend on the African Development Bank or the Asian Development Bank or whatever bank. I'm not saying those monies are not important, but I think we are missing a huge opportunity by not creating the environment so that people in the diaspora and people at home can see African electricity sector and the Indian electricity sector in some of the states in India as an attractive investment opportunity so that they can begin to invest. Because if they are investing in the sector, one of the benefits is you will have greater accountability in terms of how the sector is working. So I would just encourage the roundtable to maybe start looking at alternative investment path and not the conventional multilateral banks and development banks, but really say, can we invest in the sector by people in those countries themselves? And I think it's doable. I think the last point I'll make in terms of lessons learned would be good to hear from India. How is it in India that some of the states in India have better utilities than others? And I think it's because of the governance structure. So to the extent India wants to share with the African utilities how the government structures are emerging to allow some of these things to happen, I think it would be very useful. So I just wanted to add those two suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You are totally right. And I can add that when we have in April 2004 in Sharm el-Sheikh, the High-Level Power Sector Engagement Forum, the minister issued a declaration where among the private sector is clearly assumed that the diaspora is one of the private sector in Africa, and we should take into account. A part of the Millennium Dam, Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia, partly funded by the diaspora. When Kengen was in Kenya was listed in the Nairobi Stock Exchange, the CEO by this time, Edin Njoroge, being the chairman of the stock exchange, issued bond for a new generation facility. And I was in Nairobi, the closer date. They received at 2 p.m., they reached the total amount and retired the people in queue, 1 kilometer queue, people want to subscribe. But they already reached the total amount at 2 p.m. Only national people travel to come to Nairobi to subscribe. I say, when you raise money in local currency, you own people in local currency. You don't care about exchange rate. So that are some experience that we need to put. Every country have diaspora contribution. When you take the figure in some country like Mali, is phenomenal. The quantity of money the Mali people from outside send it to the country. We have been talking about some project like Inga Dam for more than 70 years. Let's raise at African level a diaspora fund. In 1 month, we reach the money to do it. So we'll try to package all this to be able to tell the right story. So this is a homework. We'll try to do it, and that will serve like base to more organize this roundtable again. I don't know what about you. I like it, and I know that we have very good story to tell. Before we conclude, I pass the floor to Reggie and Ravi.
Thank you very much. I believe you had a fruitful discussion. This is the first of this roundtable which we have initiated this year because interest from different utilities in different countries in Africa. So we hope we will be able to plan a bigger one and for next year. Although last 2 editions, Abel himself was coming with few people, Jeannot and a couple of. Last year we had people from DRC, I guess, yeah. So we hope to have more people coming in, and we are also happy to have Eskom this time. And some of the work, I believe Nick Singh would have spoken about the microgrid, which goes in a container and it gets installed in no time. So those kind of innovations, what Madam had said, that you can leapfrog. So solar energy today is the cheapest form of energy in human history, and it is predicted to be 1 cent by 2030, maybe even less. Today it is 3 or 4 cents, 3 cents per kilowatt hour. It's likely to be less than 1 cent by 2030. Just imagine, you don't need to build big power plants, you don't need to build big transmission lines, you don't need to cut trees. And solar and battery prices have come down so less. To feel it, because last year in July the prices were reduced from somewhere around $90 per kilowatt hour to $56 per kilowatt hour by CATL, world's largest battery manufacturer, announced that, and it is available today at $56 at cell level. So our systems in an EV or in BESS, that impact will be felt later part of this year. So, and the prediction is that 2030 the battery prices will be $30 per kilowatt hour. I would say it will be 30 even earlier. So battery plus whichever area you can have wind, solar plus battery plus wind is going to change everything, and you don't need to struggle. I just take another example. In 1995, when cell phones were introduced in India, that only in 4 metropolitan cities, that landline connections were less than 10% of the people. Less than 10% of the people had landline connections. And today almost everybody has a phone in their pocket. And nobody believed. And if this technological shift was not happening, had it been only wired phone, even today, not even 25% of Indians would have had a telephone connection. We used to book trunk calls and wait for days. International call we used to book and wait for 2 days, 3 days when it matures. Finally, when it matures, you are not there, or that person is not there. So we leapfrog to an entirely different era with that. Similarly, the new technologies I talked about in the morning are all going to change, and we are looking at a era of abundance in everything. And our personal assistants are here, but in future it will be a robo which will be going around with you. We will have all time to engage into more intellectual activities, recreational activities. So believe in 10 to 15 years, maybe those who survive another 10, 15 years can always live forever. You can just plant your consciousness into a robo and live forever. Nobody will die. So that's a kind of future which is there. And many things which we have done in India, the frugal innovation which you have done are very relevant in Africa. When you go to Europe, when you go to USA, you see many things they have done very well. But those are too expensive. They're too expensive for a developing country. We have done here, you should learn from our utilities. I propose that I have written TPTCL Smart Grid Lab and their training facilities, etc. If tomorrow and day after, there are many interesting sessions, but all of them, I don't know the level of, we couldn't actually arrange a good interpreter, French-English interpreter. So some of the sessions, morning till evening, you sit and you understand only 50%. And then much better is to go, interact with people and see what is being done. So they are open to take you either tomorrow or day after. Decide, we'll arrange somebody from my colleague will go and visit that and see what is being done. And as I mentioned yesterday in another session, Delhi, when it was privatized, the losses were 50+%, 56, 57, and one region it was 63%. We don't even know whether it is correct because there was no actual record. It was only estimated losses. Today we are well below 10%. There are only some few pockets which are very difficult, which has its own problem. Otherwise, if they also had been, we would have been 5-6% in Delhi total losses. This journey of 15 to 20 years, and power cut, we don't even know when the last power cut happened. Before privatization, what was happening every summer, in at least one day in a week, there is no electricity, and it is 42 degrees centigrade in Delhi in May, June, July, even in the middle of the night. 3 o'clock in the night also it's 42 degrees centigrade. You cannot live without electricity. If you go and sit on the terrace, mosquitoes will lift you. So that's a life which we had, and it's all transformed because of focused attention by utility with the proper management, the three privatized utilities, and technology. Technology can give the way, but the management and strategy and the roadmaps are more important, which they have done systematically. It's not that today I privatize, next year there will be a result. No, it may take its own time, 2, 3, 5 years. Orissa, four distribution companies in the whole state, the electrification rate was very low in Orissa, because Orissa was the first state which we taken up for privatization in 1998. We had privatized, given to some people, but it didn't happen actually, because before the assets were handed over to the private operators, there was a big cyclone. Orissa is on the eastern part, and after poles and everything destroyed, and there was no insurance. And it's a failed experiment. It went on for 22 years. And during that period, regulators appointed an administrator who was running the 4 distribution companies, and electrification rate, service quality, everything remained very poor. And 2021, they handed over to Tata Power. By 2023, all of them, at least power purchase price, they've been able to return to the producers the same month or the next month. So, and today all 4 of them are from red, their balance sheet are in black. That transformation and electrification rate, almost several million new customers have been added, and they have, and the reliability has been improved. So a lot of things which we have done in our, not only in private distribution company, even state government owned distribution company. I often say it's the management is more important, not ownership. Let it be owned by anybody. If you have proper management, we have very poorly run private companies also in India in different fields. So management is more important. If you, it's a great opportunity to sit together and share experiences. We had, you had seen in the film in the morning, 3-day training program we had done along with APUA in Cape Town. That was in February, towards 20th February sometime last year, which was funded by World Bank. And there were more than 70 senior executives from 30 plus countries from Africa. And we all were as faculties, along with some colleagues from Tata Power Delhi and several other countries and some World Bank experts. And we, as again Madam said, there are some very good projects done by some utilities within Africa itself. So, but nobody knows what has happened. In India also, we do a innovation award, which you will see on Friday evening. We get nominations. This is only a award. There is no application money, no nothing. People do. Utilities, more of the projects come from utilities. There are different categories of award. So this year we had 300 plus nominations, which we scrutinized and brought it down to some 71 people were invited for presentation by the jury. ISGF is not involved. It's a completely independent jury. So, and they finally decided 35 or 36 projects for award. If you look at that 35, 36 projects, at least 25 of them are with the latest technology. It's all AI, robotics, machine learning, etc. So tomorrow there is one session which we are doing, I think one of these rooms. It's on deep dive session on AI ML use cases in utilities. So that is shortlisted from the people who won award in 2024 and 2023, and some of them who are going to get award in 2025. That will happen on Friday. Award will happen on Friday, but those presentations, and it's the agenda, it is written, what are those, if you look at the booklet, you will see what are those. And it's, many of them are very, very good projects which has been done by utility, not by Siemens or ABB or Hitachi or anybody. It's done by utility themselves. Many, the problems are addressing their local need. I just take for an example, same, let me take Tata Power in Orissa. Orissa, agricultural area mostly, and there are a lot of water during the sowing season. There are connections given to hundreds of thousands of agricultural connection given to pump sets and people living there. It's almost impossible for a meter reader to walk. Smart metering has been done completely yet. So it's so difficult if you walk water up to your knee. So they came out with a solution, BLE, Bluetooth based meter reading, and a drone. So their supervisor will stand in a place where there is no water, and this drone will go around and read the meter. And again he moved to another place where there is no water. By physically earlier they were not able to do meter reading for 4 or 5 months because it's a completely marshy area. So this technology company sitting in Europe or America cannot even conceive there is a business need like this. There is a use case like this that will be known only those who are facing the problem. And that innovation came from their own engineers. That our own engineers developed that. Last year we had given a prize for that. So there are so many interesting things which are being there, you will see. And these things, we go about and talk, our bandwidth is, or our limited, and our reach is limited. But this association which is launched today is going to be all electric distribution utilities will join that association, All India Association of Discoms. At their platform, when all of them are there, when utilities get a chance to present, this is something which you have done, it's good, this is something which is done, then it gets scaled up. There are utility meetings happens in the ministry, but that was on a different agenda that happens for 2 hours and gone. But this kind of a platform, this will be, and IDA has a website also, all this will come in there. So we hope to take this collaboration relationship forward, so that we all started at almost at the same time, at 1940s and 1950s when we got independence. India in 1947, when we got independence, we had only 1.3 gigawatt. 1.3 gigawatt. And me and PK, we are batchmates. We started working in NDPC together in 81. That time also we were somewhere around 40,000 megawatt. And now it is 460,000 megawatt. So, and the growth been phenomenal. And it's all because of hard work of people. And I often say it has nothing to do with politics, it's people. And thank you very much. We hope that this relationship, this dialogue, we can take it to more fruitful, real projects. Something which we have done here can be adopted there, something which is done there can be adopted here. And we are doing the same thing now with Indonesia, we are doing the same thing with the Latin American countries, particularly the Brazil and others. So I take 2 more minutes. Smart metering, which will be tomorrow the whole day, there is a smart metering session. This is based on a very innovative business model which is proposed by ISGF way back, but which has been tried, tested, and now 250 million smart meters are installed in India on that business model, wherein utility doesn't pay any money in the beginning. Utility doesn't pay any money. Government of India is giving 15% of the project cost, or approximately $10, about 900 Indian rupees, whichever is the lower, as a grant from Government of India. And the utility will appoint a service provider, the smart metering service provider. He come with his own ecosystem, meter manufacturer, communication services provider, IT, system integrator, cyber security, all that. The contract is given to just one agency. And they bring in their ecosystem partners, they implement, and $1 per meter per month. This is exactly the number which he said in 2017 when we proposed it in a white paper. Today it has, well, dollar that time was 69 rupees, now it is 89 rupees. But by and large, most of the contracts today awarded are at 80 to 85 rupees. And the discoms, the utilities have much bigger advantage, not by T&D loss reduction. You have real data, dependable data. When you have data, you can estimate your demand more precisely, your power purchase cost goes down, several other downtime time goes down. So utilities are gaining more money. Initially some of the states where they have done this 80 rupees, 90 rupees, 100 rupees per meter per month, the benefit they calculated is more than 200 rupees. So this is a very interesting model which you have done. Now people in Southeast Asia are interested, people in Latin American countries, they are interested. So we take a delegation to Latin American country, so the Latin American Smart Grid Forum in August. Last year and last year also we did that. Many people expressed interest to see this model. Thank you. I stop here.
Thank you so much. You want to add?
No, I think he has said it all. But
okay.
I want a date from him as to the next African conference. What date are you setting?
Okay.
In Africa.
Yes. I came to this. You all received this. Is our 21st Congress, the Congress of the 55 years of APUA, taking place in Egypt, New Cairo City, from August 28 to September 5. We will reorganize very properly this roundtable to share, to continue in the view of the Mission 300. We don't have time now to elaborate on the Mission 300, have been launched by the head of states in Dar es Salaam, 27 January last, and this to be able to connect another 300 million people in 5 years. Sometimes people are afraid. We are talking about connection. If you connect 300 million people, you are connected 50 million points, because a family is 5 or 6 persons. If you connect 50 million points, that a single African country connect 1 million a year. So it's doable. The 12 compacts which have been launched by the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of the country, the President of the country, Minister of Finance and Energy, is to affirm the political will. So now is to work on it. So we'll be taking stock of this during this Congress. But before this, like Lauren said, we'll be all invited to Washington, D.C. from 3 to 9 May for the GIE, so that discussion will continue. We are a multi-platform corporation. We don't exclude any kind of corporation. We only know best practices, what it is. Like people used to saying, the more important is not to know everything, but to know where you can find everything, and you are done. So in that note, I would like to congratulate and thank everybody, and I give the floor back to Ashima.
Thank you everyone for such an insightful session. As we move towards the end of the session, I would request Mr. Reggie, if you can, sir, can you, if you're here, we can have the token of appreciation by your hand, from your hand, sorry. Yeah. I would request Mr. Reggie to hand over the token of appreciation to our esteemed panelists. We can have all the panelists here. I'll take the names. Mr. Al-Kasum, we need you here. Maybe the center. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Al-Kasum. Mr. Tarun Katiyar. I would request everyone to stay back for, like, after the token of appreciation, we'll have a good group photograph. Mr. Nick Singh. Thank you, Nick. Mr. Atalanta Kar. Mr. Medewou. Mr. Salifou. Mr. Bivoung. Mr. Bivoung, we need you here. Agarwal. Janet. Agate Plaza. Sorry. Mr. Ismail Adam. Mr. Abel. Ravi, Seethapathy. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Ruchika. So, Miss Ruchika. Thank you, Ruchika. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.